I've always been drawn to oddities and curiosities, so it's no surprise that I became an antique collector. My favorite hunting grounds were estate sales, where the remnants of people's lives could be found in dusty old boxes. But one find in particular would haunt me in ways I couldn't have imagined. It was a chilly autumn morning when I stumbled upon an estate sale in a quiet, forgotten town. The house, a dilapidated Victorian relic, felt as though it had been untouched for centuries. As I ventured inside, my eyes were drawn to a tattered, leather-bound journal sitting on a weathered oak desk. Beside it lay a crumpled, childlike drawing. The drawing depicted a crude, macabre scene, a shadowy figure with elongated limbs surrounded by grotesque, distorted faces. Each face was twisted in agony, their eyes hollow and empty. It was a child's creation, and yet it sent a shiver down my spine. I purchased both the journal and the drawing, unable to resist the eerie allure of the child's imagination. The auctioneer informed me that the previous owner, an elderly woman, had recently passed away. The house had been her family's for generations, and no one knew much about her, except that she had lived in solitude. As I delved into the journal's pages, I discovered that it belonged to the woman's daughter, Eliza. The entries painted a picture of a lonely childhood, filled with vivid nightmares and a fascination with the supernatural. Eliza often wrote about the shadowy figure from her drawings, referring to it as the tall man. Her last entry sent a chill down my spine. It read, "The tall man visited me last night. He whispered secrets in my ear, secrets I can never tell. I'm leaving this place, leaving it all behind." The drawing became an obsession. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Those twisted, anguished faces and the enigmatic tall man. I decided to investigate the town's history, hoping to uncover the truth behind the haunting drawing. My research led me to a local historian who spoke of a dark legend surrounding Eliza's family. Generations ago, they had been accused of practicing witchcraft. The townsfolk, fueled by fear and superstition, had hanged them on the very hill where the Victorian house stood. It was said that the family had made a pact with a malevolent entity known as the Tall Man, granting them power in exchange for their souls. The Tall Man had terrorized the town for years until the family's gruesome demise. As I delved deeper into the legend, I became increasingly obsessed. I felt an inexplicable connection to Eliza, as though she was calling out to me from beyond the grave. Night after night, I would stare at the drawing, losing myself in its dark, surreal details. One evening, as the moon cast long shadows across my study, I noticed something peculiar. The drawing seemed to be changing. The grotesque faces now appeared more distinct, their expressions more agonized. The tall man had shifted, his elongated limbs stretching out of the paper as though reaching for me. Fear gripped my heart, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. I felt a compulsion to complete Eliza's unfinished work, to reveal the truth behind the tall man. I picked up a pencil and began sketching, my hand guided by an otherworldly force. The hours passed in a blur as I feverishly drew. The tall man's form materialized before me, his presence filling the room with an oppressive darkness. It was as if he sought to transcend the confines of the paper, to step into our world. Finally, when the drawing was complete, I couldn't believe what I had created. The tall man stood before me, a looming, nightmarish figure with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce my soul. I had unwittingly unleashed him from the confines of the drawing, and he hungered for something more. The tall man whispered secrets, just as he had to Eliza, secrets that I could never divulge. I tried to resist his influence, to banish him back into the drawing, but it was futile. He had become a part of me, a malevolent force that gnawed at my sanity. I began to see him everywhere, lurking in the corners of my vision, his elongated shadow stretching across the walls. He whispered in my dreams, his words a cacophony of torment and despair. I knew that I had to find a way to break free from his grasp, to return him to the drawing and seal the dark pact. Desperation led me back to Eliza's journal, where I discovered a ritual that she had written about in her final entry, a ritual to bind the tall man. The journal contained detailed instructions, but the risks were dire. Failure meant becoming a permanent vessel for the malevolent entity. I had no choice but to proceed. With trembling hands, I gathered the necessary ingredients: ancient herbs, a black candle, and an old family heirloom, a tarnished silver locket. I followed the instructions meticulously, reciting incantations from Eliza's journal. As the ritual reached its climax, the room grew colder, and a sense of dread enveloped me. The tall man materialized before me, his form contorting and writhing in defiance. But I pressed on, determined to undo what I had unwittingly set in motion. With a final, desperate chant, I thrust the locket into the drawing, trapping the tall man within. The room fell silent, and I collapsed, drained and trembling. I had succeeded, but at a great cost. I knew that I could never escape the darkness that had touched my soul. Years have passed since that fateful night, and I still bear the weight of the tall man's presence. I keep the drawing hidden away, locked in a box, a testament to the horrors I unleashed. The nightmares persist, and I often find myself staring into the darkness, haunted by the secrets that can never be revealed. The drawing serves as a grim reminder of the thin boundary between our world and the malevolent forces that lurk in the shadows. It is a cautionary tale, a warning to those who dare to delve too deep into the unknown, for some secrets are better left buried, and some drawings are better left untouched.
Ever since I could remember, I had been passionate about art. My sketchbooks were my sanctuary, where I poured my emotions and imagination onto the pages. But all that changed when I acquired an old, leather-bound sketchbook from a peculiar antique shop. The shop, tucked away in a dimly lit alley, had an aura of mystique. The owner, an elderly woman with eyes like ancient marbles, handed me the sketchbook with a cautionary look. "This isn't your ordinary sketchbook, dear," she warned. I brushed off her words, attributing them to the eccentricity of antique shop owners. Yet, as soon as I began sketching in the book, I realized there was truth in her warning. The drawings that emerged on the pages were unlike anything I had ever created, disturbing, surreal, and otherworldly. One evening, as I sketched by candlelight, a shape began to take form on the page, seemingly independent of my hand. It was a grotesque, elongated figure with hollow eyes and contorted limbs. I dropped the sketchbook in terror, but the figure continued to emerge, crawling out of the pages and into the room. The creature was real, tangible, and malevolent. It hissed and writhed, casting eerie shadows in the flickering candlelight. Panic gripped me as I realized that I had unleashed something beyond my control. Terrified and desperate, I turned to the antique shop owner for answers. She revealed the dark history of the sketchbook. It had once belonged to a tormented artist who had made a pact with a demonic entity to fuel his creativity. In exchange for artistic genius, he had surrendered his soul, trapping himself in a nightmarish existence. I had unwittingly continued the artist's work, giving life to the malevolent entity that had haunted him. The only way to break the curse was to complete the sketchbook with a drawing of unparalleled beauty, one that would rival the darkness within. With trembling hands, I accepted the challenge, determined to free myself from the curse. Night after night, I poured my soul into the sketchbook, creating a masterpiece that would transcend the darkness. It became an obsession, consuming my every waking moment. As the final strokes of my drawing fell into place, the room filled with an otherworldly light. The malevolent entity emerged once more, but this time it was different. It gazed upon the drawing with a sense of awe and longing, its malevolence fading. With a blinding flash, the entity merged with the drawing, becoming a part of the artwork itself. The room fell silent, and I knew that the curse had been broken. The antique shop owner congratulated me, her eyes filled with a mix of pity and relief. She explained that the curse had been passed on, and the sketchbook was now free of its malevolent influence. But I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that lingered. I had won my freedom, but I had also become a part of a dark legacy, one that served as a haunting reminder that the pursuit of artistry and creativity could sometimes lead to the darkest corners of the soul. The sketchbook, now devoid of its curse, remained in my possession as a chilling testament to the price one might pay for their artistic ambitions.
As a teacher at Oakwood Elementary, I had seen my fair share of children's drawings. They often depicted cheerful suns, smiling animals, and whimsical landscapes. But one particular drawing would forever haunt my memories. It was a crisp autumn morning when Lily, a quiet and reserved second grader, handed me a crumpled piece of paper. "I drew this, Miss Anderson," she whispered, her eyes avoiding mine. As I unfurled the paper, my heart skipped a beat. The drawing was unlike anything I had ever seen from a child of her age. In stark contrast to her timid demeanor, the illustration depicted a sinister scene, a grotesque, shadowy figure looming over a small, terrified child. Jagged lines and dark, swirling shapes surrounded them, creating an atmosphere of malevolence. Concerned, I asked Lily about the drawing. She hesitated, her eyes welling with tears. "I see him in my room at night," she confessed, her voice quivering. "He tells me things, scary things." Alarmed by her words, I decided to inform Lily's parents about the disturbing drawing and her nighttime visitor. Her parents, too, were deeply troubled and mentioned that they had heard her talking to someone in her room late at night. That evening, I visited Lily's home to discuss the matter further. Her room was adorned with colorful toys and cheerful posters, a stark contrast to the darkness that had taken hold of her imagination. Lily described her visitor as the Shadow Man, a tall, faceless figure that would whisper unsettling secrets in the dead of night. Determined to help Lily, I began researching the history of the house. It was an old Victorian home with a turbulent past, rumored to be haunted. As I delved deeper into its history, I uncovered a chilling account of a child who had gone missing within its walls decades ago. The child's name had been Lily. The connection was too eerie to ignore. It was as if the house itself had imprinted the trauma of the past onto the young girl. I decided to consult a paranormal expert, hoping to rid Lily of her nightmarish visitor. The expert arrived, armed with sage, incense, and an assortment of protective talismans. Together, we performed a cleansing ritual in Lily's room, seeking to banish the Shadow Man. The atmosphere grew heavy with an otherworldly presence, and I felt a cold chill crawl up my spine. With a final incantation, the Shadow Man's presence seemed to dissipate. Lily's room felt lighter, and a sense of relief washed over her. The following nights were peaceful, devoid of the sinister whispers that had plagued her sleep. Lily's drawing, however, remained a chilling reminder of the darkness that had once consumed her. As she returned to her cheerful, carefree self, I couldn't help but wonder if her imagination had been a conduit for the lingering spirits of the house. The Sinister Doodle served as a poignant testament to the power of a child's innocence and the darkness that can sometimes seep into their world. It was a reminder that as teachers, we must not only educate but also protect the fragile minds of our students from the shadows that lurk in the corners of their imagination.
In the quiet town of Willowbrook, there was a child whose drawings harbored a chilling secret. His name was Alex, an introverted 10-year-old with jet black hair and an unsettling fascination with the macabre. His drawings, unlike those of his peers, were never filled with sunshine and rainbows. Instead, they exuded an eerie malevolence. It all began when I, Sarah, the town's school teacher, noticed the peculiar nature of Alex's drawings. During art class, while the other children sketched flowers and animals, he would meticulously craft disturbing scenes of violence and chaos. Dark, hooded figures would torment twisted, nightmarish landscapes. The other children began to complain of nightmares, and whispers circulated about the unsettling aura that seemed to surround Alex. but it wasn't until an incident that I truly grasped the sinister power of his drawings. One day, during recess, a group of children cornered Alex, taunting him for his strange drawings. With an eerie calmness, he handed one of his sketches to the ringleader, a grotesque depiction of a faceless entity emerging from the shadows. As the ringleader stared at the drawing in amusement, the unthinkable happened. The figure in the sketch seemed to come to life, its shadowy form manifesting behind the child. It reached out with elongated, bony fingers, wrapping them around the boy's throat. Panicked screams filled the playground as the other children watched in horror. I rushed forward, snatching the drawing from the boy's trembling hand. The shadowy figure dissipated, leaving the ringleader gasping for breath but unharmed. I confronted Alex about the drawing's malevolent power, but he remained strangely detached, as if he had no control over the dark forces he had unleashed. I knew I had to find a way to help him before more harm befell the town. Desperate for answers, I turned to the town's elderly librarian, Mrs. Hawthorne, known for her knowledge of the occult. She revealed that Alex might possess a rare and dangerous gift, a form of drawing magic that allowed him to bring his dark imaginings to life. To protect both Alex and the town, Mrs. Hawthorne taught him how to harness his abilities and create protective charms that would keep the malevolent drawings at bay. It was an arduous process, as Alex had to confront his own fears and inner demons. As the weeks passed, Alex's drawings gradually lost their malevolence, replaced by more benign and introspective subjects. The town's children no longer suffered from nightmares, and a sense of calm returned to Willowbrook. However, despite the apparent improvement, a growing unease hung in the air. It seemed that the malevolent energy Alex had once channeled into his drawings had not vanished but merely found another outlet. One fateful night, as I walked past the old, abandoned house at the edge of town, I heard whispers that seemed to emanate from the shadows themselves. And there, etched into the peeling paint of the front door, was a hauntingly familiar image, a sketch of the faceless entity, beckoning with long, skeletal fingers. It was then that I realized the horrifying truth. The malevolence that had once inhabited Alex's drawings had not been banished. It had found a new host, the town itself. Willowbrook had become a living canvas for Alex's dark imaginings, and there was no escape from the sinister artistry that now enveloped us all.